What's up everyone, Steven here from Techmaker.tv. In this episode we're going to be adding CableReady to our chat room application that we've been working on. If you're just looking to get a sense of how CableReady works, you can probably just follow along. The example we're going to go through shouldn't be too complicated. If you want to actually build out the entire application that we're working on and see how the whole thing works from top to bottom, I'll link down to a playlist in the description. We've got several other videos that kind of built up to this point. So what is CableReady? Well, CableReady is used to trigger client-side DOM changes from your backend in Ruby, and they claim that you can use this and not need custom JavaScript. And we've got a fair amount of JavaScript going on with our app so far, and we're going to see if we can eliminate a lot of it. I don't know if we'll get to no JavaScript, but we'll see what we can do. And so basically what happens is on the back end you're just going to broadcast changes that you want to see happen in the DOM, and it looks something like this. So the docs for this are pretty short, so I'm not going to just sit here and read them all for you. I mean, you can go ahead and do that on your own, but we do need to go ahead and set some things up. So I'm going to just go over to my gem file, and let's go ahead and just add CableReady down here. And then I'll jump over to my server and stop this and bundle install. And now let's add CableReady with Yarn. So it's got a front end and a back end component. So Yarn add CableReady. Alright, so before we go too much more into this, let's just look at what we've got over here with our chat room. So basically, well, I need to restart my server. That would be helpful. So let's kick that back up. And let's go back over here and refresh. So we have a kind of a nice looking little chat room going on here. See, it just looks basically like something you would see on iOS or Facebook Messenger or something like that. Okay, so let's look at the code where this stuff is getting added to the screen. And technically this didn't get added with JavaScript. This got added because the page reloaded. But still, let's go down and look at, this should be roomchannel.js, which is kind of messy right now. We'll probably try to clean it up a bit later. Part of that's what we're doing here. But so what we're doing here with received data is we're essentially getting the user ID from the page and getting the actual user ID. So basically what I do is in the back end, not the back end, like sort of in a hidden element, we're putting the user ID in the page so that whenever we receive broadcast we can check if that actually came from me or not, so that I don't go ahead and append it, because what we had, and you could look in one of the previous episodes, it would quickly flash on the left side and then jump to the right side. So we just don't even want to append it if we're getting the message for ourselves. Because that's handled by a page refresh. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate this little bit of HTML with this CableReady stuff. So what we can do is copy this, import CableReady from CableReady, and we'll go ahead and put that at the very top of the page. And then down here, instead of just saying, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, but instead of just having this line, we'll still have our little comparison to see, like, is it me who sent the message. So we'll say if data.CableReady and then in here we will copy this CableReady.perform stuff. So we'll just replace our existing code. Okay, so what's happening then on, let's look at the active jobs example. So what's happening on our side is we have a messages controller where we create the message for the user, and then we have a send message job. And so that's why we're going to look at this particular example. And we're going to open up, let's go ahead and open up our send message job. And so you can see here that we have a perform message, so on and so forth. And what we're doing is we're getting this HTML, which if you want to see more about, again, go check out the previous episodes. But then we're actually calling ActionCable server broadcast, so on and so forth. And then what's happening, or what was happening over here, is we were just receiving some data, a JSON, and then using that to manipulate the DOM. So instead of doing that, what we're going to do is actually just send over instructions on how to manipulate the DOM from here. So what we can do is go ahead and grab this include CableReady broadcaster at the very top. So we'll just include CableReady broadcaster and leave our queue as default alone. And what we're going to do, so we've already got our HTML in the variable, so that's fine. So what essentially we're going to do is say CableReady, and then we need to pass in our channel here. So I'm going to just copy this because that's what we're going to use here. And then what we need to do, we don't want to change the inner HTML. So if we go up to, sorry for the rapid scrolling, if we go to DOM operations, what we can see here is we want to use this insert adjacent HTML. So these are ways that we can make mutations, basically. So what we can do is say, where did that one go? Insert adjacent HTML. See if I can spell adjacent. Okay, and then we need a selector, and then we need our HTML, which is just going to be our HTML. And we may need a position. Yeah, I think we probably do need a position here. So I need to kind of check really quick what those should be. So if we scroll over here, we can see that we have several options. Before begin, after begin, so on and so forth. What I want to do is just say before end for the position. Before end, I think. We need a comma after that. And then our selector, I need to actually check. So let's look at our room index, and let's look at where we think this should go. So we've got our div ID messages, and then we're printing out the messages in there, and then we have a separate with a class chat box under it. So that's pretty well set up actually already for this. So we should be able to just do a sort of standard CSS selector syntax, I think, probably. Let's go back to the previous page really quick. That's not where I wanted to go. Let's go. Gonna get stuck in somewhere I am lost. Okay, let's go to setup again. This is where I saw what I saw before. So we have our active jobs thing here. So we have our selector. It looks like just kind of standard CSS selectors, if I'm guessing. So we have an ID of messages, so # messages, add a comma, and then at the end we just need to say CableReady .broadcast. I swear that I type a lot faster when I'm working, but when I'm talking on these videos, for some reason, it's like I'm moving at half speed. Okay, so let's give this a shot and see what's happening here. So let me get all of my browser windows open here. So I've got a couple of new users and reset all the data and everything. So we'll just say hello. And we can see that it's not communicating in the way that it was before. And I think that we can attribute that to something that I did wrong over in the JavaScript. So let's open up the developer tools here. You can see here it's telling us that it can't read the property user ID of undefined. So let's go address that. So if we open up room channel.js, you can see here that I'm relying on getting the data ID off of this, or the user ID off of this message object, which we no longer have apparently. So let's actually open console.log data and see what all is in there. Okay, so let's refresh here and let's just add another message there. So we see this is our data right here. So we have CableReady. Inside of there, there's an operations, insert adjacent HTML, and then this has our selector, position, and HTML, and all the stuff that we put. So let's just see if we can get this working, because it's basically throwing an error simply because this is not here, and that's causing the whole thing to error out. So let's just comment out this stuff, and let's take this snippet and just throw it right there. Okay, so now let's refresh both pages over here and see what happens. And I'm going to go ahead and close this developer tools there. So we'll just say test. And now you can see that it's showing up here, and it's showing up in both places, so we're back online as far as that goes. But you can see also now we have our problem back where it posts it right here for a split second and then pops back over to the right. And if this is your first video that you're watching, I'm well aware that we have some issues with the activity. Like, so this person should be online right now. So we're going to address that in the next episode, I believe. But let's see if we can't figure out how at least to find a hack to keep this from doing this little flash thing. Okay, so let's pop back into the code here and close some stuff and reopen it. So let's look at our job again. So send message job. And let's see if we can pass in anything extra here in the option. So if I said like user ID message.user ID, let's see what this does. So we're still console.logging our stuff, right? So let me look at this a little bit better. So we're still console.logging data. So let's refresh here. And let's refresh there also. And let's go ahead and open our developer tools over there so we can see. So if we look inside of our data, so we actually have quite a lot of stuff nested in here. So what we need to do is go through our CableReady operations, insert adjacent HTML first, and then get the user ID. That is quite strange. So there's got to be a better way to do this, but let's see if we can just kind of patch this together to deal with our issue. Okay, so what I want to say is something like, so first of all, I still need to get this stuff from the page. So I'm going to have that user ID. Then what I want to do is say, I can't do data message user ID, so I'm going to say, how can I do this? So it's going to be data dot operations dot insert adjacent HTML dot, well, let's do the like selector like this, dot user ID. So we want to say is self equals, and then we'll say that equals user ID, something like that. So we'll say let is self, something like that. And then right here we can say if data.CableReady and not is self. Is self is kind of a weird way to put it. Maybe say from me. Yeah, this is really wonky, but let's try it and see if we get our behavior back that we want. Okay, so we'll test again. Okay, and so it doesn't look like it's posting and flashing to the other side now, so that at least resolves the issue. So I've been reading about CableReady for a while, but this is my first time really playing with it. I get what they're saying now with, totally just eliminating custom JavaScript. Um, if somebody has an idea for how I can change this up so that I don't need to have this check for the user ID here, feel free to leave a comment. That would be awesome. And I'll be thinking about it too to see what I can come up with. I think alternatively, and I understand this sort of goes against the philosophy here, because the idea is you want to bring all of this behavior into the back end. But it might be nice if there was some kind of options or something so you could pass along contextual data, so that at a minimum you could have, if this could just say like data.userid or something like that, or data.options.userid or something like that, that would make this a lot more manageable, I think. And then you've essentially said, okay, all the DOM manipulation we're pushing through this CableReady perform, but you still may have some conditional logic about what's going on the page right now. It's also possible that I haven't fully understood how to make the best use of current user in the situation. So if anybody has any insight that's watching this, feel free to leave a link to resources, or drop a comment just explaining it. That would be great. Otherwise, I think that's it for this episode. I'm going to kind of review this and see what I can come up with, because this is pretty cool, but I'm not perfectly happy with the code right here. I wish that this was a little bit cleaner. Um, but anyway, so the next episode, again, like, we've got to work on getting these activity statuses to be correct. I'm also going to be exploring the stimulus reflex, I guess, library and gem, to see how that can work in here. I'm pretty excited about these new tools, just trying to get my head around the right way to go about using them. So anyway, that's it for this episode. I will talk to you in the next one.